some kind of coherent intellectual force to really have a handle on the subject.
The ARC3 project is an attempt to bring together a comprehensive assessment of current knowledge, emerging knowledge about how cities are responding to climate change, how they're at risk to climate change, what the key impacts are.
Just like you have the IPCC at the country level, ARC3 is 3 C's, climate change for cities.
The first one was published in 2011, but now a new group of about 100 authors from cities worldwide are writing chapters. They're busy writing their chapters right now on everything from urban heat island to environmental justice to urban energy and water systems and to urban government, how city leaders and cities can be organized to best deal with climate change challenges.
The most interesting stuff is at the case study level. There's certainly a lot of broad assessments that are ongoing, but what UCCRN attempts to do and why it's really unique and through the ARC3 process is to connect those case studies and to link that really rich knowledge happening at the local level and make that available across a wide set of cities. And I think that's the signature contribution that this process is making.
Those case studies can be replicated in our areas. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. If the wheel is there, we just go and do it. So it's very, very practical, very, very useful to us.
We were inspired by the New York City panel on climate change and how you can see the relationship between science and policy making at the city level. And we replicated that at the municipality of Quito.
New York City has pioneered a lot of these adaptation strategies, whether it's green roofs, as we're sitting here today atop the Jacob Javits Center, which has the 2nd largest green roof in the US. These are ways to reduce the heating associated with the urban heat island and capture rainwater so that we get less flooding of our streets and our sewers. Those are among the strategies that New York City has been considering and that can lead in other areas as well.
Certainly with respect to climate change, New York, London, Durban, a few other cities have really emerged as global leaders, and they become touchstones for other cities to understand and evaluate what might be some opportunities for them to adapt and to mitigate climate change. So there's a lot of cross-city fertilization going on.
I'm very excited and thrilled to see how much power and how much passion and how much desire to do the right thing is meeting in this place. You know, we really want to do the right thing, and I'm excited to see that.
We have to prepare for the climate of tomorrow. Not just tomorrow, but tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. That's why city leaders have to take climate change into account in all their planning.
So that was our, so you know how we scientists are. Thank you. You know, we have also, just as Diana was saying for the U.S. National Assessment, we have also a communications group within UCCRN ARC3, but they called themselves the troublemakers at that workshop that you were seeing. And they said, you've got to have a video. So that's why we then went forward to have the video so we could share at conferences and also very often, not just conferences of researchers, but really conferences of stakeholders as well. So actually, let me just first turn to maybe Carolina first. And why don't you say a little bit about how you got involved and what role you're playing in the second assessment report, which is ongoing now. But don't forget, we're going to come to how anyone here can be involved. Thank you. Carolina.
Thank you. I'm Carolina Zambrano. I'm from Avina Foundation and also part of PROVIA and part of the steering committee of UCCRN. And as a Latin woman, I'm very happy and proud to be part of this effort, mainly because it focuses on cities, and not only on cities as consumers and sources of 2/3 of the world's GHG emissions, etc., but mainly because cities are agents of change. I don't know if that exists in English, but the idea is that cities are centers of innovation, culture, scientific development, are also where decision makers are the closest to the people, so they feel more related to the impacts, and also are something like laboratories for policies. Cities can develop policies that can inform national, regional, and even international policymakers making, and I think that's why this is so important. It's funny because my relationship with Cynthia started at a conference similar to this one in the Resilient Cities in 2010, when I was Secretary of Environment of Quito, and we started exchanging ideas on institutional arrangements to facilitate the communication between science and policy. And I think this relationship between science and policy reflects what the ARC-3.2 is. Because I'm also part of this, and how an important information and research tool can also inform the agents of change. In this case, citizens, decision makers, managers, etc. And I mean that this is a reflection of this relationship because it's not only reflected in the final product, but in the process. Where this assessment is an example of a new way of generating assessments, which is the co-generation of knowledge. And I think that's a very important issue because we're not putting the practitioners and policymakers only as users, but also as generators of knowledge, and that's key when we talk about adaptation. Why? Because adaptation is not a portfolio of actions, but it's an socio-institutional process where we learn by doing, and people that are doing are sources of knowledge. So this is why I think this endeavor is so important, and also it can inform other research initiatives, other policymaking initiatives, and I'm really happy to be part of it. Particularly, I'm part of the authors that are focusing on the bridges, barriers, and gaps, and also co-benefits of adaptation and mitigation. And I think that chapter specifically is also a reflection of reality. Why? Because decision makers, especially at the developing countries and at the city level, are faced with constrained resources, both scientifically, technically, and financial, and that's when we have to prioritize measures that have multiple benefits, not only in terms of adaptation and mitigation, but also development. So we're currently developing different case studies, and Quito is one of them, Durban is the other, and as you mentioned, this section of case studies may be one of the most important parts of ARC-3.2, because it shows how the learning process is evolving. So I really hope now you can also contribute.
Thank you. Thank you, Carolina. Keith, can you make a couple of comments too? See, these were the two stars of the video.
So a few weeks ago, I was at a meeting of adaptation challenges in high mountain ecosystems. And we had, so I'm going to segue from that. Oh, Keith Alverson. I run a lot of UNEP's adaptation work around the world. One of the challenges in the high mountains of both Nepal and Peru, it turns out, in adaptation, is that all the young men are leaving, and that these villages are having trouble maintaining, for example, the terracing. We discussed that in the context of how these high mountain communities can adapt, but the other side of the coin is, where are all these people going? They're all going to cities. And at least in terms of UNEP's adaptation portfolio, in the past we have concentrated on places where our ecosystem-based approaches are most robust, and not looked at cities. So when I came to UNEP 3 years ago, we didn't have any adaptation project in a city. And I'm pleased that over the past 3 years we have changed that dramatically. We now have in the early development stages 2 large GEF projects, one in cities in Latin America, a second in cities in Asia, and we're starting work in African cities as well. So UNEP is very much moving into this urban environment, and part of that has been working with Cynthia on this, in my case, the climate science chapter of the assessment report, and thinking about climate science and urban heat islands. We, in the UN FCCC, we make a lot of the 2-degree barrier, if we surpass 2 degrees, climate change will be much more dramatic. And in many cities around the world, we've already passed 2 degrees because the urban heat island is so large. And you don't see that on these maps because they're global maps with the urban heat island removed. But if you looked at the real temperature signal over the last 50 years, those maps would be big red dots around a bunch of cities, not the patterns that we see in many of in the talk just this morning. So we're working on the climate science sector. We have a couple of case studies we're working on at UNEP. One is at Nairobi, where I'm based, and one is Dakar, Senegal. So I don't want to talk too long, but we're very happy to be part of this group, and we look forward to the next assessment report.
Thank you very much. Now I'm just going to run through a few slides, because then we want to turn open for discussion. And I'm going to pass around ARC 3.1, but I must get it back because this is my only copy that I have. So this shows that all urban climate change researchers are also, they're wonderful, rigorous, and honest. We saw this in the video. Look, this is, we always see the countries, the country boundaries on maps like this with climate change. But what about the cities that are going to be experiencing the very same things, or even greater, as Keith is saying? So our mission of UCCRN is to enable cities to fulfill their climate change leadership potential, because cities are emerging as the first responders in both mitigation and adaptation. It's now over 500. Please go to the website, uccrn.org, and join. We ask you to send your CV so we can, when things come up, we get in touch with you. And we did the first major publication, and we're now writing the second. When we think about this catalytic role of the UCCRN, we have multiple stakeholders. Of course, the cities themselves and the city decision makers themselves and the citizens of the cities themselves, but also the city networks around the world that play such a key role in enabling cities to act. That's the ICLEI, UCLG, all you who work in cities know these, Metropolis, and then C40, the C40 and ICLEI are the ones that have been focused more on climate change in cities. But nation states themselves, in terms of the governance also, there has to be federal governance and linking to the municipal governance. So we're not ignoring the role of nation states. That's very critical, as well as international development agencies. And right now, also to respond to Salim, we're going to put a fifth circle on this, which is the civil society. Absolutely, because we believe that the scientists and the civil society need to interact more directly. So the members are mostly university researchers, but they're experts from all different professional settings. We have a wonderful steering group who advises. Here's the first one, which I'm passing around. But I'm not going to dwell on the first one because we're really now in the midst of the second. And we had scoping sessions at conferences all around the world, and then launched the actual process at the World Urban Forum in Naples, and we were just at the World Urban Forum, a wonderful World Urban Forum in Medellin. Maybe some of you were there. We have an expanded set of lead and contributing authors. It is truly a horizontal network encompassing researchers from cities all over the world, both adaptation and mitigation. Where it makes sense in cities, we really look at that interface, and then truly interdisciplinary. My co-editors are Bill Selecki. I think you saw all of them in the video. Bill Selecki, Shagun Mirotra, Shobakar Dakal, and Patty Romero-Lancao. So we have just a wonderful group. So one of the things we did was we did a survey of, we're doing a survey, it's still not finished, we're analyzing it, of what do city decision makers want to know, right? This is the co-generation part, right? It's not just us saying, oh, we think you need to know this, right? So it's still weighted to North America, so we want to expand and have that pie chart be equal across all the regions of the world. But this is what they actually said they wanted the city decision makers said that they wanted information on most. So the first number one is Carolina's chapter, mitigation and adaptation, barriers, bridges, and co-benefits. So that really speaks, I think, to also Gina's talk, some of the points she was bringing up. But the second one is also very important, urban planning and design. How to do the spatial constructs of cities so that it can lead to sustainability. The third is disasters and risk and our crossover, continuing crossover between the climate change communities and the DRR communities. And then finally, economics, echoing Diana's talk, economics, finance, and private sector. So when you come to see the outline, these are all reflected in the chapters that we have. Here are some quotes. I'm just going to read one of them, which is this one. If you could ask experts for information about climate change, what would you most want to know? And I think this one is very interesting. It says, the farther we get into incorporating climate resiliency into city services, oh, thank you, wonderful. Thank you. City services and practices, the more specific the questions are for experts. So where we are, I believe, right now is we've sort of done all the hand waving we can do now on, oh, there's going to be higher temperatures and this and that and the other thing. Now, to really implement adaptation, we have to be much more rigorous in helping express what the science of the risks are. Very similar, I think, to what Chris was saying in his talk, too. We have to really bring forward and have the interface with the science. And by the way, this is not just about climate science. This is about all the disciplines, going really the next step in terms of the research that we really need to do and bring forward. So this is the framing structure, the new topics, many of which we were just expressing, a science update. We always, because the climate system is evolving. Key topics, I'll show you those again, but planning and design, health, attitudes, behavior, agriculture, urban agriculture and food, ecology, finance, coastal zones, of course. And then, of course, our sector updates. We always have to have those. We don't have separate regional chapters. We express and give the examples in the case studies, and in the case study docking station, the users can pull out a particular region. But we think that to enhance learning, we shouldn't be kind of siloing regions, and so the regions are across all the chapters. This is the outline. You can see, I won't go every single one, but this is the outline, a lot of discussion with cross-cutting themes of urban planning and design. Here are those, basically, I think those are almost the 4 key ones that the decision makers wanted, at least 3 of the 4 of them. And of course, governance is still, we had that in the first one, and of course, very critical to moving forward. So let me come to the part about the docking station, because this is the part that anyone here who has some great work on a city that you are working on, a program, research, this PhD research, we're very happy to have young scholars contribute, but also any example on any of these topics, we invite you to be a case study author in ARC3 too, and it is named, so this is a publication that you will have on your resume, your CV. And this year, we're doing it this time for the second one. Before there were almost 50 of these examples of key programs that were working, barriers that weren't working. It was a wonderful set. This time we're going to have even more, and we're creating a database around those case studies. We call it the ARC3 Case Study Docking Station, so that there's a template of data, population, governance structure, is it metropolitan region, the core, et cetera, all the different things about what's the climate zone, right? So that you could search by climate zone, you could search by geography, et cetera. Or is it a small, medium, or large city? And it's designed to be useful for both research and practice. We're developing a robust methodology. We have a great team, a case study docking team. It's actually co-led by the University of Aalborg in Denmark. Is anyone here from that team? And Bill Selecki is working on this as well. So there's lots of these efforts, but this is the one that we're going to be creating, and we invite you to be. So if you would like to do one, go to the uccrn.org website, and there's a template and basically an application to submit. We have just as with the IPCC and the U.S. assessment, we have a very rigorous review process, editorially, expert, stakeholder, and institutional. We are in the midst of this because, like everyone else in the whole world, talk about tyranny of timelines. Everything now is aimed to Paris 2015. So we are determined to have at least a key product from the assessment, if not the whole assessment. But that's what we're trying for, and we're pretty much on track. And then finally, this is the last one, we want to thank our sponsors. We have a very diverse group. If you looked at those stakeholders, that stakeholder circles, set of circles, these are represented here. Of course, we thank UN Habitat for, they're kind of our home UN agency, but Africa Development Bank and Balgus is here from there. JICA in Japan, NASA, that's my home agency in the US, but you can see also university partners, IDP, the Inter-Americas Development Bank. David Wilk has been a great, wonderful supporter. And then Siemens, so we have private sector donors as well. And the Siemens is actually hosting the midterm authors workshop in London at the Crystal, their environmental skyscraper, I guess you'd call it. So with that, I want to turn it over. There's the website, so all of this is on there. But let's see if we can turn on the lights and also have discussion and learning from. If people have any questions, if people are, what are you working on? What case study might you'd like to contribute? Comments, suggestions. This is truly an open process. It evolves as we go along. Again, this is a bit, you can see, I hope, that there are some great things that we are similar to the IPCC on. The rigor, the benchmarking, because this is the second, we can compare and see what we've learned. But at the same time, we really are working, as Carolina said, to have a new kind of assessment that co-generates knowledge with the decision makers. So, thoughts and responses, questions? Let's see, is there anyone here who worked on the first one? Do you want to, sure. Cecilia Condé worked, she did a wonderful, who made one of the questions in the plenary. Jean Fu, but you first. Please introduce yourself and say what you're working on.
Okay, thank you. I'm a big admirer of your work, so it's great to have you here in Brazil. I'm not going to make a question, but basically, invite some help if any of you here would be interested in collaborating with us. We are joining efforts with an association of 27 Brazilian cities. It's a joint effort of environmental secretaries from the 27 capital cities of the 27 provinces. And we basically have the big challenge of mapping vulnerabilities and very quickly trying to make an assessment and work with them on their adaptation programs and plans, and we need all the help we can get. And I am from the World Resources Institute, the chapter of Brazil, the WRI Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we would very much like to highlight that program in ARC3 too. Jean Fu, and please stand up and also say who you are and where you work.
Thank you very much, and I'm Shan Flu from the UNFCCC Secretariat. And this is very exciting, and not only because, exciting author team, and which I always admire, but it's really the action actually underlining the report. You have a very impressive list of case studies, all demonstrating how climate change action could actually underpin the sustainable urban development. And this is something I think we at the Secretariat are also trying to promote. And I don't know whether you are aware that our executive secretary launched this bottom-up movement, really trying to promote and help publicize the local scale actions. And people often got put off quite easily by these UN-style negotiations and a lot of talking, a lot of words. But if you look at the national, sub-national level, there are lots of very effective actions taking place. And climate change action don't have to compromise development in any way. And on the contrary, it really promotes and facilitates sustainable climate resilient development. So very exciting, and look forward to the new report.
Thank you, Jean-Fu. And maybe we can discuss how perhaps we could share with the delegates, for the members and the parties, I know they're doing a cities dialogue, I believe, in subset. Yeah.
Under the Nairobi Work Program, in the Warsaw decisions, there is a thematic area being singled out in promoting adaptation knowledge. One sector is actually urban human settlement. So that's a very important theme being highlighted by parties. So we welcome the network actually joining the Nairobi Work Program as a partner and share all this very rich knowledge with the wider adaptation community.
And we already are. We are. So let's see how we can build on that.
Cynthia.
Yes, please.
Ira Feldman. I wear different hats with the University of Pennsylvania, Antioch University, the American Bar Association, and my own company, Green Track Strategies. You've alluded, Cynthia, several times to the horizontal nature of your network and how easy it is to get involved. While everyone is still gathered, can you be more explicit about that? What are the specific opportunities and who do we talk to?
Yes, sure. This is exactly how you do it. Go to www.uccrn.org, and there is a click on the button that says join. That's number one, and it asks you to send a CV, and you have, Ira, you have multiple ones because of all the hats that you wear. And then basically, it's self-selecting. We don't turn people away, but so that we can really see who the members are. The second concrete way now are in the assessment process, which is our main activity right now. The most I would say accessible and direct way is to submit it's basically, you have to fill out a form, a template for a case study. There will be some selection because we just have to make sure that they're actually appropriate, but it's not a heavy thing because you can see how broad it is. So the best way for you to be involved right now is to go to the website. Besides joining, is fill out a template for one or more case studies from your work or activities, and it could be whichever one or more. Then beyond that, some of the chapters are looking probably still for contributing authors. The lead authors are pretty set, I think. But you can see if the chapters are there and the authors are there, and if you have something like a burning part that you want to see in that chapter, then you can be in touch directly with the CLAs and say, I'd like to be a contributing lead author. These are the direct, specific ways. Good. Salim.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. It's very nice to see how much you've moved forward since the beginning of this, when I remember cooking this up with you at the beginning. Just a comment in terms of sharing the information. Once people are starting to do things and you're sharing information, this is a very good way to do it. But there's another way that we need to think about as well, which is face-to-face communication. So in my center in Bangladesh, we just, in fact, day before yesterday, finished the 4th short course. We run these 7-day-long courses for city planners. And we've now got about nearly 100 of them from different cities in Asia and Africa, mainly, not so much Latin America, although we'd love to have them in future courses, where we bring them together, where they share actually from each other. And the learning experience is orders of magnitude more than reading your report, no matter how good the report is. And so, how can we develop those kinds of face-to-face sharing knowledge and experience across cities, which is, as I said, a very valuable way forward.
Great. Absolutely, Salim. And I didn't mention this, or maybe it was on one of the slides, but when we have the report, we rolled out the first report. We had real workshops in all the continents around the world, bringing groups together. And we would be more than happy to work with you and your groups and any of your contacts to do those kind of workshops and training. And by the way, also, it's been used, we've been collecting it's been used in many different educational settings and college courses, et cetera, and for training. So thank you for that. I want to hear from Marcus also about resilient cities, but let's hear first from this gentleman here, and then Hartmut.
Hi, my name is Paulo Nobre.
You have good.
I coordinate the Brazilian Network on Global Climate Change Research, and I like your approach to going from assessments to actions. And I would like to report that one way in which all the knowledge available to make cities livable is through economic pressures. So São Paulo has a mega city of São Paulo, and we have undergone the mega city studies for climate change research. And one thing that makes the city livable is the biosphere reserve around the city that has been severely endangered by economic pressure. So one very effective way of putting weapons in the hands of researchers is that when we have access and we have a partnership with international institutions like that can announce for the international funders, like the Inter-American Bank for Development and the World Bank and others, that are funding development, so-called development processes that endanger regions like the Biosphere Reserve that promotes water and clean air for a mega city of São Paulo. So it is new for me, this, and I strongly urge and encourage that we can add forces economically to withhold this devastating inclusion of international capital, promoting this devastation.
Thank you very much for that very important comment. This is exactly why we didn't have an urban ecology chapter in the first one. We wanted to, but we were just getting going and couldn't, but we felt it was essential to have an urban ecology chapter. So I hope also that you would submit a case study describing your program, and I know that we have a representative in the audience from GEF, so the words of the need for supporting urban ecology and incorporating urban ecology into the solutions are absolutely critical. And so it's already happening right here at this meeting. I have to say one thing, which I think, let's take a few more comments, and then I know you all want to get lunch, because then we want you to come back for the PROVIA session. But Samaya Ali, who is the program manager, couldn't be here. Because she's getting married soon, in just a couple of weeks. But she will kill me if I don't have a list of everybody who is here. So the thing is, I think the easiest thing, though, is if everybody could just give me, maybe Carolina, if you could collect cards from everyone, then we'll know that you were here. So let me turn to Marcus, and how many more comments? Roger, great. And okay. But Hartwig, I think I know what he's going to say. So no, all right. Sorry, I don't mean to presume. But let's hear from Marcus.
I mean, I can't speak.
Say who you are.
I'm Marcus Mensch. I'm from ISETS, and we've been heavily involved in the Asian Cities Climate Resilience Network for a long time, doing a lot of some of the conceptual foundations, but also very much involved in the implementation side. And I think that from the point of view CCRN, there are two big initiatives out there that I think are incredibly important. One is the continuation, and Salim's very aware of this, through Mercy Corps of the Asian Cities Climate Resilience Network. And Jim Jarvie and people like that would be incredibly important to link with in terms of material ideas and things like that. The other is, which I really can't speak for, is the 100 Resilient Cities initiative of Rockefeller, where the appropriate person to contact is probably Andrew Salkin at that. And they are trying to build a network. What I have heard from a lot of the cities that have been involved at the local level is that they tremendously value the cross links. That it's the question of having an influence as part of a local set of governments that has a voice and that can make an impact. And that would be also linking with people like Deborah Roberts and the Durban Convention cities. But the whole point that local government has an incredibly important role to play here and can have an impact, and that there's a tremendous desire, whether it be in my own hometown of Boulder, which has just been through floods and is looking at resilience, or in the cities that we work with, to link globally and into this so that there is a voice of what can be done coming out of the realities of local government rather than just kind of the top-down analysis. So.
Yes, very much. Thank you for that, and very, very important comments. And by the way, that reminds me, I think it also was on a slide, but I didn't mention it, but UCCRN has an MOU with the Durban Adaptation Charter so all of these different efforts are linked with each other, because that's what it's really going to take for the kind of action that Marcus was just encouraging. Now I'm going to turn to Hartwig. Here it is. Hartwig, sorry to before.
Right, okay, well, since you just, first of all, my name is Hartwig Kramer. I'm in the Scientific Assessment branch of UNEP Nairobi. And the first two questions you don't know because they are scientific. And I take off my UNEP hat now. We have been working on cities, on subsiding cities actually, for quite a while in the framework I was involved in before, which is called LOIC. So I'm a bit worried about to me, maybe it seems, and the perception may be wrong, that the focus is on climate change as a driver only. Because if you talk about sea level rise as the key issue, in fact, if it comes to change that affects city planning, city governance, and city projections, you will find many megacities located in deltas which are subsiding due to completely different drivers. There can be adaptation to climate change far upstream if it comes to river damming, if it comes to hydrological management that cuts off resource streams. So I'd rather argue that that can't be looked at in isolation as the only driver. The second point goes in the same direction. Actually, there's a paper been recently published by John Day and co-workers about sustainability and place. And it looks particularly in those areas regionally in the United States where sustainable development may already be compromised due to the fact that adaptation to climate change is not going to happen in those areas where energy is mainly produced in order to secure food production, like the southwest of the US, for instance. That has an effect on the megacities on the East Coast. So if it comes to governance and adaptation on the city scale, the areas where action is actually needed may be far, far different. And it's something that's also addressed by the International Resources Panel, which is also a UN activity. And that was more a matter of curiosity. I wanted to ask how that is captured in this assessment. Now the thing that you should know, now UNEP is obviously having the mandate of keeping the environment under review. Well, the environment doesn't look at environment in isolation, but the people are part of it. So we do that mainly through assessments. So one of the key activities that we are driving in this context is PROVIA. And I wonder, what would this assessment benefit from in seeing that the PROVIA Scientific Committee maybe endorses it as one of its key contributions, and then has the intergovernmental level to reach out to, let's say, well, the universal membership of UNEA, which is 190 member states.
Great. Thank you so much, Hartwig, for all of those questions and comments. All right, let me take them quickly. All right, when our team, who is on the climate team, when they are addressing the issue of sea level rise, always takes all of the factors into account. It's not only from the the global sea level rise aspects. So that local subsidence is very, very important. And we think actually we have some new methodologies which we want to work with you scientifically on in particular. So that's the first question. The second question was really about the scale. Exactly, because people say, well, if you only look at the cities, then what about the supply chains and even just let's take the food. So here we have, I don't know if you noticed, but there was a highlighted topic on sustainable production and consumption. And this is exactly where we tried to have a whole chapter on that, but it didn't fly. It's interesting, but you know you have to get the authors who have worked on it a lot, et cetera. But if anyone is particularly an expert here in this room on sustainable production and consumption or ecological footprint type of analyses, we would be more than happy. And finally, and I'm going to give Roger the last word, but just on the PROVIA question, which could also be the last word, but this is the next to the last word. So from the beginning of this, actually, both with Martin Parry, the former chair, and Salim, and now with Jean Polutikoff, the new co-chair of PROVIA with Salim, we would very much welcome being under the umbrella of PROVIA, especially what you were saying about the linkages to UNEP, the countries, the national level, because part of an assessment has to do, we all know, it has to do with the legitimacy of the assessment, the salience, and the credibility. So I think we have salience, I think we have credibility, I think we do have legitimacy based on our city stakeholders, but we are very much, that's why we very much value the links to the United Nations agencies. And Roger, can I give you the last word?
Thank you very much. I was walking the street with the UK Climate Impact Program. One of the things I was quite intrigued with were the 4 points that you brought up as a result of the survey. And we've been working with cities at UK-CIP for a number of years, and it was quite interesting to hear those. Information on mitigation and adaptation, sort of the barriers and bridges. Cities have to work at that combined level, and they don't have the luxury of separating mitigation and adaptation, so I thought that was interesting. But it was the next 2 points that I thought that were really interesting, because what we're hearing in dealing with cities is the difficulty of the siloed approach to urban planning, climate change adaptation and mitigation, and disaster risk management. This is causing significant difficulties with cities because they're hearing conflicting messages. And what's quite interesting is the role that we're now starting to see, or the emergence we're starting to see, where you're getting UNISDR getting more and more interested in climate change adaptation and bringing those communities together, and similarly from the Climate Adaptation Committee. But it's the 4th point that I thought that was really interesting, because in the UK and a number of places I go in the world, I'm hearing from the officials that unless you would link adaptation to economic growth and development and to jobs, there's no money. There is no money. They have to deal with other issues, and it was part of the discussion we heard in the presentations. And I know if you link adaptation and you bring it in, and it will address some of those other issues, but what we're hearing is that explicitly you have to make that link in order for adaptation them to find money to do adaptation. So I think I'm raising this because I think that's a real challenge to the assessment, is to bring those together, because that's how people in the local authorities and cities are looking at these issues. And we run sessions with cities all the time, and that's what we're hearing. So I'm hoping to see some of that brought out in the book, in the assessment, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roger. Just very quick couple of comments. We also have strong ties to UNISDR because absolutely that crossover, that intersection of sets with the disaster risk reduction and the urban climate change issues, we really need to bring those communities together and continue work there. And then finally, on your last point about the importance, and echoing some of Diana's thoughts from her plenary, and Roger's bringing forward the challenges of the economics and the financing. It was actually very interesting at the workshop. Remember, Keith and Carolina, at first we had 2 chapters, like, straw man. One was private sector and one was the financing, or something like that. We had a private sector chapter, or then maybe economics and financing. And at the workshop, they decided that they would have a merger between the two chapters so that we could, all of the people kind of working in that sort of spectrum of space could work together. So, and actually, that chapter is going to be meeting anyone who's going to be at the World Congress of Resilient Cities of ICLE in Bonn at the end of this month to early June. That chapter is holding a chapter meeting immediately following that that Congress, which just illustrates that the way that we work, see, we have author meetings that are like right with the stakeholders, like we go to all the we go to the decision makers meetings and this, and participate in them, and then we take what we've learned and then have our authors meeting. So it's like, it's a perfect example of how we're trying. I mean, all of these chapters, the ecology, the ecosystems, the local governance, the governance issues, these are very challenging issues, but we hope that together with that we can all work on them. So I thank you all so much for coming. Please join the network and keep in touch, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you.